Hey everybody, welcome to SleepyVlog number 59. This one is going to be nothing particularly fancy. I could almost just call it a haul video. I'm going to talk about going to the Lineworks alternate comics and illustration festival. But mostly that was a shopping experience, so it'll be a haul. And I've been buying lots of trades, so I thought I'd show those. And chat about a few other things, give some shout-outs. And I did want to mention my upcoming third-year anniversary. At first I was going to make nothing of it, but it seemed like a good excuse for a Q&A. I like doing those. I like watching it when people do them. So I'm inviting people to send me questions in the comments below or via Twitter, which is SleepyReader666, I think is my Twitter handle. I'll put a link to Twitter down below when I get a chance. Send me questions, and I think, what is it, next Tuesday? Shoot. I'll put in the description down below when I'm gonna when the actual date of my anniversary is. I think it's next Tuesday or Wednesday. So all the questions I get by then, silly, serious, about comic books, about other things, I will do my best to answer unless I decide they're too personal and I don't want to answer them. But I'm not too shy. So yeah, please ask questions. As many as you want, or as few as you want. And however many there are, I'll do a video of it on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever the exact date is. It's really always weird to go back and see that first video of mine. It was literally an unboxing. I cut open a box which had some Narnia books in it. And it had, and then I showed those and talked about why I had ordered them. I think, let's see, if it's 3 years ago, my daughter was about 3.5 at the time. And I had fantasies that she and I would read the Narnia books together at that point, and I had bought some more nicely with color illustrations in them, Narnia books. I should have dug up those Narnia books, because now my daughter has basically abused them, and some of them are kind of falling apart. And we tried reading them several times, and I never managed to get her interested. She's deeply into Harry Potter now. I don't know if we can swerve back to Narnia later, or if it's just not going to happen. And I also, in that first video, showed some Carl Barks Donald Duck Uncle Scrooge comics that I'd bought in hopes that we would read them, and those never worked out. So my first video was about things I thought I was about to read with my daughter, and I never did. The Donald Duck stories that we read, they were about money and I think even real estate, and it just was, I guess it was Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck, and it was just of zero interest to a 3 or 4-year-old. I don't think it would have any more interest now. I got all excited. IDW last week, or this past Wednesday, released a brand new Uncle Scrooge #1, and I thought, this will be interesting, see what some modern creators do with Donald Duck. I assumed if IDW was doing it, they would bring in current people and give it a shot, kind of the way they have. Well, they've done it with a number of things, but I was thinking of the Boom Comics has the Peanuts comic book, which is kind of sacrilege for anyone besides Charles Schultz to be doing Peanuts, but it actually turned out to be a pretty decent comic book. In fact, I should look into that again. But anyway, sadly, very irritatingly, the IDW book is actually a book of reprints of Italian Donald Duck, or Italian Scrooge McDuck comics. And they're just not terribly appealing looking. I mean, I'm going to take a jab at them, but I've tried these Italian comics before with my daughter on some digital platform, and they were just okay. So anyway, we'll see. But that was disappointing. I was hoping it was an American take on Scrooge. So I've got this microphone doesn't like to stand up very well anymore. Try and stand it up. I also wanted to shout out some of the newer people that I've been watching lately, and the usual note that these aren't all the people I'm watching. These are just what I happen to have noted down just recently. So there's so many people coming in right now, and it feels, you can tell me if you've been watching a while, it feels like more people in their 20s are coming into this YouTube community. It felt like when I started 3 years ago that there were younger people, and it was great to have them there. Like there were even some high school kids, and they've pretty much all gone away, all the high school kids that I can remember from when I started. And some people in their 20s, but I felt like the average person, just as at my comic book store, was in their 30s or early 40s. So I was on the higher end then. But now I feel even older because I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people in their 20s coming into this YouTube comic community. And not to say I have any idea of the ages of everyone. I was quite surprised. I didn't write his name down. There was a high school student, dang it, talking about what people think of comic books right now in high school. Dang. So I'm going to research that and put that down below. I think he has Spidey in his name. But that was kind of a cool video. It sounded like comic books are much more acceptable now, but kids can't afford them, which is kind of what I guess we all might have guessed. But it was really good to hear it confirmed from the mouth of someone still in high school. So anyway, beyond high school, there is TheMaskedPanther. Who knows how old he is? He wears a ski mask, so you can only see his eyes. You can only see his eyes, basically. But he's a thoughtful fellow, a big Black Panther fan, of course. And actually, you get to see something interesting if you watch all the way to the end of his most recent video. And he had another channel for a short while, but I forgot the name of that. So TheMaskedPanther is his new channel, and he's just beginning to get subscribers over there. Another channel that I like a lot is Evil Eye Comics. I really like his reviews. Smart, interesting guy. Then there's It's Just Tough 82, who also is just beginning to build up subscribers. Definitely go check out his channel. He's just my speed in the sense that he just sits and talks about what he's read in a relaxed way. BavarianReviews I just discovered. I'm not sure if she's been around a while or not. All the videos of hers I've seen have been in her car. You get the sense maybe she just left the comic book store, although who knows, maybe she's somewhere else and just is doing her reviews and stuff in the car. She's really interesting. She has a bit of an accent, although her English is incredibly good. I don't know if she lives in Bavaria, is from Bavaria, or if there's something else going on there. Then there's Samantha Nerd, who also does really good reviews, and I think is maybe a book channel along with a comic book channel. I have to go back and double check that. And Sparkle Fists is really good, does some really good reviews, and I think she's over in Ireland. So those are all the ones. Oh no, one more I wanted to shout out was J Rocks, who's still pretty new, but maybe I've been watching him a little longer than some of those other people. But he's also a pretty new comic book reader, and has a lot of interesting things to say about reading comics too. So I really enjoy all those people. There's more that I didn't in my haste to throw together, people that I've been watching recently who are new. But yeah, it's kind of, I guess, being here for 3 years, I feel like I came in the mid phase, like assuming right now is the later phase, so that when I started, the community was small enough that within a certain amount of time, it seemed like everybody doing comic book videos knew who I was, whether they had a lot in common with me or not. But now I feel like there's whole territories of the comic book community who haven't ever seen a video of mine, and I haven't ever seen a video of theirs. And some whom I'm watching who don't know who I am, and may or may not be subscribing back. So it's just a whole, I mean, the guys who've been here for 5 years, 6 years will have an even more extreme kind of feeling about how it's all changed. And there's kind of a temptation to just kind of not make as many videos anymore. I'm kind of torn both ways, because I kind of like the weekly discussion. But another part of me is like, well, I've said so much. I've made 395 videos. Maybe I shouldn't be yammering so often. I also really don't like looking at my face. It might not seem that way because I love to talk. So, but my favorite videos of my own are the ones that I shoot on my iPhone on a little tripod and just aim it at the comics. Those are the ones I like to rewatch because I don't have to see my face. But I've lost that little tripod. So that's kind of been slow. I took the hiatus and I've been slowly coming back to making videos. And that's kind of gotten in my way until I find that iPod thing. I keep saying, well, do I want to really sit in front of the computer and look at my face while I'm talking? And then if I want to rewatch it to see how it is, I have to look at my face again. Right now I wish I had shaved and I seem to have scratched myself here or something. I don't know. Or just generally, I much preferred to look at myself when I had a full beard, just because it hid stuff I don't like to see. But there you are. Hey, it started raining. Wow. Pretty heavy rain. We haven't had that in a while. We had a strange March that was almost like summer here. And then April's been kind of up and down. But meanwhile, while on the East Coast where my parents live, they were socked in with snow. So, do I have a good transition here? I don't think so. Yeah, so, well, one thing that this comes from comments in a comic book roundtable that I was watching, and Ryan something. Anyway, he pointed out, and I'm really sorry, Ryan, that I can't remember your handle properly. He pointed out that with image books, there's some labeled image books like Top Cow and I can't remember the other older one, but there's Skybound, which is Robert Kirkman's personal label at Image, and they put out a lot of non-Robert Kirkman books, but those comics are copyright Skybound. They are not copyright by the authors, like Birthright, which is by Joshua Williamson and the fantastic artist on Birthright, whose name I can't remember. I should call this vlog names I can't remember. So Birthright is not copyright by Joshua Williamson and his co-creator, and neither is Clone, which was one of my favorite comics that was coming out from Skybound, which sold so badly that it eventually stopped publishing, and it was probably like my #1 book, and none of you guys bought it. Well, I know one or two of you did. Still check out, there's 4 trades. I would still highly recommend checking that out. But anyway, Skybound just got a big development deal with, I think, Universal. Anyway, that one of these big movie companies has first rights to all Skybound comics. First refusal, I suppose you'd call it. And that seemed like really good news. And I assume, it's Robert Kirkman. He's bringing in the people he thinks are good and having them do comics. And so I'm sure he's paying them well and giving them a share of things, I would hope. But in the end, it's copyright by him. It's own, or copyright by his company. And so along with, there's just the issue of, like, we thought everything at Image was creator owned. Those aren't creator owned. They're something else. So apart from worrying about the creator rights and everything, because we don't know what their contract is with Robert Kirkman, there is the issue of one of the reasons I like creator comics is they can't be messed with by the corporations or outside forces. They are their own thing. There's not going to be involved in a crossover. Someone's not going to say, hey, there's a movie coming up, let's change the way the characters look, or whatever. And I bet that Robert Kirkman, while he's running Skybound, is going to be the same way. Say, each book is its own independent thing. Don't mess with the creators. However, so he could hire someone else. He could get old. He could die. He could sell the company. I never thought that George Lucas would sell Star Wars, but he sold it to Disney. Any company, eventually, if it's worth money, is going to get sold one way or another. And what happens when Disney owns Skybound or Universal owns Skybound? What happens to those books? So I'm not actually worried at the moment that birthrights can be messed with, but it does change a little bit the way I view those comics that I'm going to now look. Is this Skybound? So yeah. One thing, like with Clone, apparently they were losing money on it for a long time, but they kept it going because they had a TV deal. And when the TV deal fell through, that's when they stopped keeping it going. So I assume it was Robert Kirkman money that was paying the artist rather than the money coming out of the pockets of the writers when they're losing money. I don't know what their deal is, but they had a fantastic artist, Juan Jose Ripe. I'll buy anything drawn by him now. So it just changes. It's just an interesting little detail. I mean, I've been very excited by Image and creator-owned comics as a reader because of their integrity. I mean, there's also the idealism of let's have creators be treated properly. I think Image comics are very tricky because someone, usually the writer, is backing the project, like it's paying the artist and paying the letterer, and I'm not sure whether they actually have to pay the printer too. It would be great to know. I don't know why, just because I like details. It'd be great to know all the details of these deals. We get little hints from people like Jim Zub, who does blogs where he talks somewhat about the economics of it all. Anyway, so I thought that was an interesting thing. So I haven't had dinner, and I hardly ever drink beer anymore, and I'm feeling lightheaded, which is really embarrassing. So last weekend I went to this thing called Lineworks Northwest. It's organized by some local guys who just love comics. Obviously alternative comics. But one of them goes to my comic book store and is on Twitter and kind of mixes it up a bit with some of us YouTube guys on Twitter. His name is Sam Marks, so I don't know. I know he's occasionally watched my videos, but a big salute to him for organizing something like that. On one level, it was really great. On another level, yeah, there's nothing bad about it, but it wasn't quite what I expected. It was called Illustration and Comics Festival, Lineworks Northwest, and it was free, and it was in one of these halls. It was in the Norse Hall, which is, I guess, kind of like the Knights of Columbus, but for people of Scandinavian background here in the U.S. I don't know. I'd never heard of it before. And there was a big hall where they had filled with tables. There's a diagram here of the hallway, and then there was a bar off to the side, and then upstairs was a little lecture room where they had panels, like maybe 4 panels a day, I believe, 4 or 5. And sadly, I only caught one of them. It was fascinating. Mostly, I wandered around this hall and looked at what was on the tables and looked at the people standing behind the tables. And most of what was on the tables was things somewhere between art comics and zines. I guess there's a huge gray area there. It could be most epitomized by No Brow, was kind of like the top level. No Brow is this British publisher of art comics that that I've only heard of because Comic Book Crack, Terrence up in Canada, talks about them a lot. I think he orders some of their books online. So this is No Brow number 7. They put out books. They put out little pamphlet zines. So I bought this anthology of theirs called No Brow number 7. They had 7, 8, 9, 10, I think up to 11, or I can't remember, or maybe up to 10. And then I bought this little pamphlet-sized comic called Golem Chick because I liked the art and the feel of it, and I wanted something from No Brow. I didn't know what to get. Basically, you walk up to these tables and they have a few samples out, and you flip through them for a minute, and then you decide to buy something. There's no long boxes of back issues or anything like that. And you can talk to the people behind the table and find out a bit. Sometimes, if it's something smaller, it's the creators. No Brow, it was some representative of No Brow. So these big No Brow anthologies are flip books. On one side it's an anthology of comics. It's kind of, if anyone remembers Raw magazine from back in the day, way back in the day in the 80s, Mouse came out of that, but it was eclectic and very cartoony in a sense. I don't know. It just had all kinds of stuff in it. And it was a showcase of people doing unusual artistic approaches to comics, and it was oversized, so this kind of reminds me of that in a way. The people at Raw ended up, now they're like the art directors of the New Yorker magazine. But then you flip it over, and it is purely an art book, with each artist getting a 2-page spread. Or actually, that one's a comic book. But most of them are purely an unusual, slightly avant-garde artistic illustration. There's kind of a weird intersection between high art and illustration, I think, that maybe this kind of book is all about. I don't know. You know, some of these people might have gallery shows, and some of them might be book illustrators, or some might do both. So it's definitely interesting to look at. I haven't read the comics in here at all yet. I mean, like, I haven't got to the point of being interested in reading them. Every time I pick it up, I just want to look at the pictures. I did try to read Golem Chick, and it was boring. It was not very interesting. It did not grip me. It was not paced and told in a way that immediately gripped me. I'll give it another try. I definitely, I grabbed it because I liked the colors and the art style and the paper. This cost $6. There weren't, I'm kind of used to paying discounts and stuff online and everything. However, there was a kind of discount from the smaller people. So what I liked best about this is when I got to talk to people producing their own comics. The thing was, it was so incredibly crowded, and I asked someone, well, was it less crowded earlier in the day? Because I arrived around 2 o'clock, and it started at noon, and they said, no, it was mobbed from the beginning. So it was, people were willing to talk to you, but it took a lot of effort to get through the crowd, and for me, my brain kind of turns off when I'm in the middle of a big crowd, which is maybe why I don't like things like conventions. But anyway, I did get to talk to this guy who produces this, I guess you'd call it a mini comic, called Black Sheep. And he is a African American from Oakland, California. And I bought this from him and this from him, which is a autobiographical comic done. I kind of like that. I don't know if other people are doing that, but I thought that was creative, where it goes like that. About his bike ride from San Francisco to LA in 7 days. So, but I haven't read this yet. The art on the inside is much sketchier than the cover. But he was an interesting guy, and I got to talk to him a little bit, and I kind of now wish I'd bought even more comics from him, because I'm curious about the earlier issues of Black Sheep. And I guess one reason why I mentioned that he's an African American, because it's maybe not really appropriate of me to mention that, is A, there weren't any, I didn't notice any other African Americans there, but B, the characters in this comic that I bought, obviously when it's about himself, it's an African American, they appear to be Caucasian, as far as I can tell, and I don't know, maybe some Hispanic people too. I'm not sure what those are all supposed to be. But so with the name Black Sheep, I was just expecting more a comic book about a group of African American friends. But anyway, I really look forward to reading this. And then he just tossed in this thing called Mugology, which is just a bunch of, it's like his sketchbook of portraits that he's done. So I like, especially in theory, sort of as a fan of art, I like the idea of artists publishing their own work, doing unusual personal things, and the intersection between perhaps fine art and graphic storytelling. I bought this one. I just couldn't resist this. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be making fun of men's feelings or actually, ironically, saying men do have feelings too. But there's kind of just the whole thing going on in society right now with, I don't know, a weird dynamic in society right now about men and whether they have feelings, whether their feelings matter. Obviously, in my father's generation, their men's feelings were all that mattered. In my earlier years, there was a struggle, and now, I don't know. And speaking of that, so the men's feelings, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to have a conversation with that person. Either I wasn't feeling talky enough from the crowd, or they were not as approachable. Can only imagine what it's like to stand behind that table for 2 days or 1 day. This is volume 2. Did I forget to pull out? Okay, I did talk to this guy, and I just liked the look of the covers, and I flipped through it, and it looked like, stories of kind of an everyday life, and I thought that would be interesting. And I talked to the guy a little bit, and so he was the type, he was like, I think one issue was $5, and if I bought 2, he gave it to me for $8. So that was the kind of discount he sometimes got. And I really do like color. Like, I really like his drawings in color. Much, I'm sad to say. I like his drawings in black and white, actually. I should take that back. They have a nice look to them. But, so, I sort of equate this with men's feelings. I asked him, just look, he had a series of comics, all with this character on the cover. And I said, is that kind of an alter ego or a stand-in for you? And he said, well, yeah, kind of. And now I've read issue 1, and it's all about the most hideous, horrible man in terms of his attitude towards women that you would ever imagine. So it's like, except that it's all written from his point of view, but he's still utterly awful. It's like a woman's ultimate bad blind date would be with this guy. In the most hideous scene, he's making out with the woman, and he thinks he's going to get laid, or he really is going to get. They're heading towards her house, and then he realizes she has unshaven underarms. So and then she has to go to the bathroom. They've been drinking a lot. He points out a porta potty at a construction site. She gets in the porta potty, and then he pushes over the porta potty with the door side down, so she's trapped in it, so he won't have to sleep with her, and he runs off. So that's the kind of guy he is. So I don't know. Now I'd like to ask the creator more. I have to confess, part of what I was hoping when I was looking around was like for the next guy who did Yummy Fur, the Playboy, and paying for it. What's his name? So this I thought might be in that vein, and I suppose in a way it is. What's this artist's name? Is he's on the cover? Tom Van Dusen. I think the character's name is Tom. Wait a minute. Well, ladies, don't ever date Tom. Anyway, I kind of like these. I wish they used dialogue balloons. He puts all the writing down below beneath each picture, which I think there's a reason dialogue balloons work so well. They're right in the picture, and you're reading and you're experiencing the picture at the same time. Instead of your eyes moving down, reading the text, look back up, look at the picture, look back down. I don't know. But that said, I enjoyed the first issue quite a bit. So I may look to see if I know there's at least one more issue about this character. And then there was this table, and there was something science. Well, this issue is called the science fiction issue, and there was something about these drawings that were kind of science fiction-y. So I picked these two up. This author was busy chatting with all his friends. And that's the other thing I got the sense at Lineworks, that it was a networking place for people who are more the underground or whatever you will. I think like the big star there was Farrell Dalrymple, who's illustrated a lot of Prophet, and has a graphic novel out that's getting a lot of buzz. So this was kind of a fun. They're a little bit like underground comics, a little bit like zines. I haven't read this one yet, but this one, they were more random and weird than actual science fiction stories for the most part, even though there was science fiction imagery and such in it. I'm being random and weird. But anyway, there was interesting stuff, but it's not like deeply satisfying or I went, wow, that's brilliant. So, just one more thing. There was a press called Alternative Comics, and they had what must be an early Brandon Graham. His style isn't even exactly the same. You can see it evolving, and you can see... it's interesting how some of that doesn't fit the page, but here it fits the page. You can see a kind of underground comics vibe even stronger here than in his later work. But I look forward to reading this. It's called Escalator, and it was reasonably priced, $12.95. So I think what I was expecting somehow by the name Linework and Illustration and Comics Festival. I was expecting it to be a little more like an art gallery. Like I was expecting partially tables like they had selling stuff, but I imagined lots of little mini art galleries scattered here and there, where you could check out different artists' work in the original size and everything like that. And there wasn't anything of that. A few people had some original artwork or prints. I thought I might buy a lot of prints, but nothing totally grabbed me, and I ended up, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I ended up spending a lot of money. I guess the Nobrow got a lot of my money. Oh, and there's something, here. There was these hardbacks from this Canadian group called the Anthology Project. And I asked to buy one of these, and she gave me the other one for free. However, I found out they were, and I wish I could have talked to her more about it, and maybe she had other stuff that was more recent. These are actually from like 2011, and I thought that you could only get them in Canada because they only have Canadian prices on the back. But my daughter pointed out to me that once we actually got one of these out of the library. These are, as it turned out, kid-friendly. I'm glad we own them and that I got them, 2 for 1, because they are quite inspiring to my daughter. So overall, it felt like everyone was really nice and friendly. It was just too crowded for my tastes. But I think I'll still go back next year, assuming it's still happening, Sam. I think it will be. It seems very successful. But I will focus more on the panels, which were, the one I went to wasn't that crowded. It was a animator who used to be a zine producer who's a creator or co-creator of the show called Sanjay and Craig. I've never seen it. Now I'd like to go see it. And I guess he had worked on Bob's Burgers, and he has some other big project coming up. And it was a lot of fun to hear him talk about being this art school dropout who did zines and art on skateboards, and then it wasn't clear how he made the transition from that to going to Hollywood. But one thing he did was made an animation that he and his friends put up on YouTube. And he was well over 40 years old, so he had been on the fringes of things for a long time before becoming a hot animator in Hollywood. And the thing he emphasized, which is kind of obvious, but anybody creative needs to be reminded of this, is put it out there. Do it. He's saying if you want to make a zine, do it. Don't sit around thinking about it for a year. Just do the zine, put it out there, then go up, move on, and do your next zine. If you want to do animation, do the animation. Find a way to do it. Put it on YouTube. That don't let anything stop you. That we're in an era of putting stuff out yourself, and that's how you make things happen. So any of you guys want to write, draw, animate, that's what you got to do. You can't just hope to. I'm afraid you probably also have to network. Like I said, did I follow up on that thought? It definitely felt like people were there to network with each other. There are after parties and everything. I am kind of imagining in my head like a food chain of, people putting out their own really small comics, then maybe being, part of a bigger group and putting out nicer things, and then maybe ending up at, if they're really lucky, at Fantagraphics or Oni or somewhere else like that. Fantagraphics was there, Oni was there, Dark Horse was there. I don't think, while I was there, that there was much going on at their table. There was one mainstream comic book artist there, Ron Randall, and I did not check out his table just because I wanted to do the alternative thing, but now I wish I had done that also. He had a box full of original art he was selling, and I would have liked to have looked through that box, but there was kind of a crowd around his table. He even had like these banners up behind him and everything. It was like he was from a different world than everything else there. I talked to the guy at Nobrow. I don't know if he was an editor there or whatever. He was an American, and Nobrow is a British company, and he said that in the last year or two, No Brow has opened up an office in the United States, in New York City, and they're looking to recruit American artists too. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. So my big mistake, and I apologize for going on so long about this, is I actually have only been to one comic book convention, and that was in 1982. And this wasn't really a comic book convention, but it was something like that. My big mistake was going with a good friend of mine who's a really great guy and everything, but he's not as much of a comic book person as me. And so, like, I wanted to go right at 12:30, but he wanted to eat lunch. So we went to a pub and we ate lunch and sat and talked and drank beer, and then eventually moseyed on over. And that's kind of why I only got to see one panel. And yeah, so next time I think I'll just go on my own, unless one of you guys comes and visits me when this is happening. Because I would like to go to more of the panels. I like to, particularly to find out about what these more alternative people are up to. So, and I suppose if one got really brave, I think there are some open after parties. I assume there are some private ones too. Okay, how long have I gabbed on for? I think really long. Oh, holy crap. 41 minutes, 42 minutes just about. Okay, well, I will forego doing my trade haul. I've been buying a lot of trades lately. I'll just show you the pile. There's that. There's this. I love this. Mr. Miracle, Jack Kirby. Incredible. Here, let me give you just a few seconds peek. Actually, my Wi-Fi's been weak lately, so this is going to take forever to upload a 43-minute video. Yeah, I'll have to show this another time. The great thing about the earlier Mr. Miracles is they go to Apocalypse a lot. So you get to see the dirty underbelly, like Granny Goodness's orphanage and other places like that. Anyhow, I'll talk to you all later. If anyone's made it all the way to the end, I really salute you. I can't believe I